Hello, and welcome to Orthodoxy Transforming. In this fourth podcast, we will explore the root of what spiritual means and what it might possibly mean to be spiritual. Also, in this podcast, we shall look at the first steps to spirituality. I think this might help. Let's consider a figure of speech. When someone notes that they have understood the spirit of the thing, they mean that they have gotten to the bottom of the matter, the heart, the essence of the matter. Now, this idea of getting to the heart of things, getting to the spirit of the matter, is a concept rooted in the oldest religion on earth. The oldest religion on earth is animism. Animism teaches that everything around us has a spirit that lives in it and animates it, or gives it life. The rocks, the rivers, the hills, mountains, cats, weasels, everything. They only appear as a manifestation of the spirit which animates it. This belief system asserts that the unseen spirit behind everything is the essence of the thing. So when we speak of spirituality, we need to rethink what we mean. We know we cannot mean asceticism or the denying of pleasure and comfort, although most religions honor being selfless, which is, after all, a form of asceticism, but it also cannot mean the mindless self-indulgence of the hedonist. So what is it? It cannot be obedience, for the religions of the world cannot agree on who or whose rules to obey. It cannot simply be knowing right words, for all the religions of the world have different words to know, and most of them will, in the end, conflict with each other. So what is spirituality? Let's go back to our figure of speech. Spirituality is knowing the heart of reality, the way things are, the real case in front of our eyes, how it is all connected or not, and how we all fit into the big picture or not. Spirituality is the big picture, knowing the big picture, participating in the spirit of the thing. It's taking the macrocosmic look at the universe and all things connected with it. When we are spiritually hungry, we are not so much hungry for being outside ourselves or for longing for a being outside ourselves. What we long for is the truth regarding our situation, what life means, and what the present can inform us about the past and the future. This is why many people become spiritually interested when they are young and looking forward to life and wondering what it all means and how it will all play out. Or when they are older and they are wondering what life meant and what meaning their life has had. Or when bad things happen to them. They long to understand the reason why and what misfortune and fortune really mean. The path to spirituality begins with something so simple that you've overlooked it. Most people have. The path to spirituality begins with the observation of what we see around us. Observation, acute, honest observation, is the very first step into the world of spirituality. Opening our eyes to the big picture is the first move toward a spiritual life. To do this, we have to make a commitment to ourselves to only accept those truths that are self-evident. In other words, as we begin a spiritual path, a truly spiritual path, we must accept as truth only those things which are universal. The spiritual truths of the human race are, or should be, agreed upon by everyone. For instance, as we calm our minds and sit in quiet observation of our situation on this tiny little planet, several things become self-evident immediately, while other things do not show themselves self-evident until later scrutiny. But one of the first truths of our situation that emerges from quiet observation is that all things begin and all things end. Even our quiet observation begins and ends. Our breath begins and ends. This concept, then, leads us to understand that we ourselves had a beginning, and that we ourselves shall have an end, namely in death. All things are born, all things die. Clouds are born, clouds dissipate. A thunderstorm is born, a thunderstorm passes, so that the sunlight again is born, until the next thunderstorm, where the sunlight will end and the thunderstorm begins. We will be tempted to wonder, what will happen after death? But resist questions like these, because at this point, this first step in our own spirituality, there are no self-evident answers to that question. We do not know from observation what happens to a person after death. Therefore, admitting the inevitability of death is a spiritual truth that is self-evident. The whole world, unfortunately, must agree with the fact that no one gets off this planet alive. In fact, even the planet, astronomers tell us, will not get off the planet alive. So our first step to spirituality is to see the big picture. To see the big picture is to open our eyes and begin observing. And then we shall learn to understand that we had a beginning and we shall end. All things die, they arise, they emerge, they flicker, they descend, and then they die. We are no exception. Spirituality must begin with observation, not information. Let me say that again, because there are many spiritual teachers in this world that want to drag you to their conclusions before you've had an honest chance to observe. Spirituality must begin with observation, not information. In other words, reading a sacred text or listening to an exposition of a sacred text cannot be the starting point of a true spirituality. We must begin here, now, using our own powers of observation to discern reality and to discern non-reality. Most religious traditions began with observation. Some religions claim to have written materials given by the god or the gods to the specialist priests that then reveal to the people the way things really are. Christianity is one of these religions. Orthodox Christianity believes that God revealed himself to writers who were inspired to receive that sort of transmission by a spiritual contact. However, we should not begin with the religious texts, or we may find ourselves never understanding why we went to the religious text in the first place. The religious texts, including the Bible, are supplemental knowledge that add to what we could not observe on our own. Having a religious text, having a religious teacher, including myself, does not free each individual from our first responsibility, and that is to start the spiritual path with observation. In the next podcast, we shall look more at what it means to use our observation as our first steps on the path to spirituality. Thanks for listening.